I'd like to welcome you to Change My Relationship podcast. And I have once again with me Liz Woolley. We did our first podcast on her personal story of how her son killed himself because of his addiction to video games and the tragedy of all of that. And now she's back, and we're going to talk about her book. And it is going to be the one, what is the name of it? You
The
the
toxic dangers of video games.
toxic dangers of video games. I'm sorry, I didn't have I have the table of contents, but not the title in front of me. So we're going to be talking about that. There's so much in it. There's no way we can talk about all of it. So I'm going to pick what I want to focus on. And I would highly recommend that you get it if this is affecting your life. She has been a warrior in the battleground of the video game addiction war for almost 20 years. Her career was in information technology for 30 years. She's been a software programmer, systems analysis, upgrade specialist, and technical support administrator. She's been involved in numerous 12-step programs, and she actually founded the one for online gamers anonymous, Olg-Anon, and Olga, right? Olga.
Right.
Olg-Anon for the family members and Olga for the addicts. And she's been on numerous television shows and newspapers. And it was back in 2001 that her son took his life. So she's been a warrior in this since then, making good of her son. Hence the first title of her book was Your Son Did Not Die in Vain. And today we're going to focus, like I said, on the toxic dangers of video games. So welcome, Liz.
Thank you for having me, Carla.
So let's just get right in there and start in on the statement that you make in your chapter 3 of your book is video games aren't created just for fun anymore. And I think that's the important thing for us to start with, that video games are not the innocent Mario Brothers and Pac-Man that they started out being. So we're going to talk about the addictive design of digital games, and she calls it "and other creepy stuff." So where would you like to start? Would you like to start with the statistics or the psychological hooks?
Let's just start with how it changed.
Okay.
The video games actually were started out to be for entertainment, and then in the late 1990s, early 2000s, that was changed. The video game companies decided that they were going to redesign the games and make them as addicting as they can. And I actually have a quote here from John Smedley. He was one of the game designers. And it said, the best way for gaming industry to make money is to make video games compelling and immersive. There's another one here. Is it okay if I find it?
Yes, go ahead. Yeah, and while you're doing that, is what she's talking about is that they actually use psychologists and people to help to literally decide how can we hook people in, keep them hooked in, and make them addictive. So that's, we have quotes there, it's in writing, it was right out there with the plan. And obviously that's really behind all social media, is the same thing is happening to make it as addictive and compelling as possible. But in video games, they did some very specific things that have caused the addiction rate to just absolutely climb.
And what they do now is they have millions of dollars that they have in their budget to figure out how to make the games even more compelling and addicting. And this is every year. I mean, they're just all the time, and they're making them worse and worse and worse. And, I know now they're putting like porn in the video games. They're putting gambling in the video games. They're putting guns and weapons. They actually get the exact models of the guns from the gun companies. So they know how to shoot the guns in real life, even though it's just on screen. They know how to load them. So every year it's just getting more and more like, you know, we're going into the twilight zone and nobody's stopping it. And they're all like, well, you know, it's for entertainment. We're trying to make it more realistic. And really, that's really not what we need.
Right, exactly.
Um,
So let's just establish that point that the video games are purposefully made to be as addictive and compelling as possible. So, and that you said happened around 2000, and
right.
then take it from there.
So um, then there was a couple games, and then other gaming companies saw them. So they would combine the best-selling games and take all the things that made them, you know, so compelling, and then they would combine them all into the one game, which is what World of Warcraft was.
Mhm.
That was a combination of several of the games that came out before that. And so many people got addicted to that game. And what they're doing now is the gaming companies they're actually getting patents on their new ideas of being addicting, getting the games addicting, so other gaming companies can't use their ideas.
Oh, okay.
So now it's all filed with the government. I mean, that's like really scary. And the government isn't doing anything about it.
Right. So
You
they
know,
so they know what it is they're doing and what they're putting in
yeah,
there.
they're doing it on purpose,
Yeah.
just like with the cigarette companies. And you know, they knew exactly what they were doing to make them addicting. And the whole thing is because we're in the middle of this right now, and nobody's stopping them, you
Yeah.
know, don't.
So what are some of the specifics that psychological hooks and the things they do to actually make them addicted?
Well, one of them is time sinks, which means they call it grinding, where you just have to do the same thing, or you have to wait because you're waiting for a prize to drop. But you have to be there when it drops. So you have to sit there and wait until it comes, and then hopefully you'll get it, but maybe you won't because somebody else might get it. Another thing is they have guilds, and they have groups of people where they go on raids, and everybody has to be there to go on the raid. And if you aren't there, they will throw you out of their group.
So, and that is a psychological tactic because that's kind of like shaming. Also, you're the one that ruined the group, and so you're out. Now, we're talking about games that are considered kind of virtual reality, right? Where you create
Virtual
yourself
reality.
as a player, you have an identity, you have things that you own, you are
Yep.
participate in kind of a life online.
Yep.
And you're saying in these that they give you prizes and they give you store stuff and you get things and they might be are they like a relationship stuff or is it fighting or is it like
It's
stealing or
some of it is relationship. I think now most of the relationships online are fake. This is one of the later things that they've been doing is their costumes, what they're wearing in the game, and they can buy different ones, and of course the fancier ones cost more money. I mean, they have to pay for these, and if they want the free ones, they're just like plain Jane ones. And so to get more attention, you pay and you get, fancier ones, and you can't be wearing the same ones all the time.
oh.
People just spend so much money on, and the gaming companies come up with this. You know, it's like, hey, what else can we do? What else can we get
and
them
that
to
and
do
that
to
makes
give
sense
us
because
their
they're
money?
yeah well yeah they're making money. I know my grandson plays Roblox. Is that a benign one or is, I mean, that's kind of virtual you buy things, you get things, you can trade things.
Yep. And a lot of people say, well, it's a free game, but then if you want to go beyond the very basics, then you have to start paying.
Mhm.
And I know I tried playing Second Life, and, they said, well, that's free. But then when I played it, I could only get on one island.
Mm.
And if I wanted to go anyplace else, I had to pay. and I'm like, well, this is crazy. I mean, who's going to just sit on one island,
Of course.
and there was nobody else there. And it's like, yeah, a free game, right? You know,
So the psychological hooks of if you're not there when the group gets to go do this planned thing, then you're out of the group. Then why is that a big deal? Why does that matter?
well, because that's your group. And usually it's called a guild. And when you join a guild, I mean, you're kind of like, you don't really switch guilds. That's not really, uh,
Right. So
that's
then
frowned
you
upon.
right. And then you
And
have to
then as you're in with this group, and the more stuff you collect, you get stronger and stronger. You get better people in there. You can like attack anybody and win, and then you get to take their loot. So, so it's like, you're part of that guild. And if you get kicked out, then it's like, you got to find somebody else who wants you, or, it's like starting at ground zero again.
mhm. Wow. That's you can see how that would just suck somebody's life up and they'd want to be there all the time and create anxiety and depression and rejection.
And the thing is they do it during family meals. They
Mhm.
do it in the middle of the night. So the person is up in the middle of the night gaming instead of sleeping. It really, the way they do it can really affect a person's health.
Wow.
Um,
So how does it change brain activity?
it's like any other addiction. So in the brain, they're called neural pathways. And when you're doing an activity, it starts to create a neural pathway in your brain. And the more you do the activity, the bigger that pathway gets. Now, I'm just going to say this is not everybody gets addicted to everything.
Mhm.
Okay. Um, for some reason, we seem to have a drug of choice, and we just, focus in on that one thing. I don't know how it's decided which thing we really like, but it happens. And there's a lot of social gamers out there,
Mhm.
but there's people who are susceptible to having problems with the gaming. And most of those are like somebody who's autistic or ADD or ADHD. We've done surveys and find that probably 95% of the people who are having problems with the games are in one of those
Really?
situations.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's
And
something about the brain, the way that brain is created and how it responds to the games, where it just sucks them in. And they're like, oh man, this is what I've been looking for all my life. It's easy. I don't have to deal with the real world. And they just want more and more. So what's happening with the brain then, the more they're doing it, the bigger that pathway gets. And pretty soon it's like overcompassing their life. And it's like anytime there's a problem, anytime they don't want to do something, the brain automatically is, oh, game, let's go game.
well,
Because
and it's
that's what
also the
they've been
pleasure,
doing.
just like any other addiction, it's the pleasure receptors, the dopamine receptors,
Yeah.
where it creates pleasure, but then the more that you stimulate the dopamine receptors, the more receptors you get and the more stimulation you need in order to feel the same amount of pleasure, which is what happens with the sexual addiction. It happens with the drug, alcohol, and it happens with the same thing with the video addiction, is you're actually feeling excitement and pleasure and during that game. And when you're away from the game, you're feeling a little anxious because you're, like
Mhm.
you said, you're kind of worried about it, you're wondering about it. It's kind of like another life that you've invested in. So you're anxious, so the anxiety builds up. And then how do you get rid of the anxiety? You go back to the game, and then when you play the game, the anxiety calms down and you feel the pleasure instead. And it's just, and then let's repeat again. And that's how the addiction grows and grows.
And it kind of like, it takes your choice away because you don't sit and think, gee, I wonder what I'm going to do now. Your brain automatically is like, go game. You're not even thinking, you're not even choosing. It's like, okay, got to get back to that game. And
Well,
that's
and
really
then
what an addiction is when you're not making the choice. You're just like,
exactly.
this is what I got to do, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the idea of an addiction is that it has a negative impact on the rest of your life. And even though it has a negative impact on the rest of your life, you continue to do it, even though it's causing you harm. And then you build up tolerance, and then you have withdrawal when you try to stop it. And then that's so uncomfortable. Tolerance meaning that you need more of it, and you need more of it to get you like feeling good and not feeling anxious. And then the withdrawal is when you stop it, you actually get withdrawal. You get very anxious, you can get agitated, you can get, you can get even physical symptoms that if it crosses over to that. And I remember watching one time on a special on TV where they had, I believe it was triplets, and the kids were only about 9. And there was one of the boys was addicted to video games. I don't know if it was just regular games or if it was this type of game, but he was extremely angry and just obstinate and oppositional anytime his mother told him he had to stop playing the game. And the other kids, when they did play a video game, and she said it was time to stop, they were fine. But this one was, for some reason, addicted to it. And then they did brain scans, and it showed how his brain had actually changed as of even at that age playing these games. And I believe it was less activity in the prefrontal lobes, to where he was literally, it was affecting his brain growth and everything. You've got pictures to show that exact same thing.
Here is that brain scan of those 3 kids.
Oh, those 3.
It's in our book.
Okay.
And this is the one that's the gamer. And look at, there's hardly any activity for him.
Yes.
Compared to the other 2. And the other 2 didn't have a problem with the games. He was the one that had a problem.
And was he 9? Was he that?
Yes.
Young? Okay. And was it on like Nightline or something like that?
Yeah, it was on 2020.
2020. Okay.
Yep.
Yes.
And we actually have that on our YouTube. But anyway, I'm going to show you what happened then. They sent him to a camp for 3 weeks, and he was unplugged from all of the electronic devices. And instead, his days were filled with human interaction with others and camp activities. And after 3 weeks, another scan was done of his brain. And now his brain is lit up and full of activity.
Oh,
that one
wow.
right down there.
Wow. That is
Compared to that.
All over. On the first scan, for those of you that are on podcast, the first scan pre-camp was almost no brain activity. And the next one is the brain activity was all over the brain, both sides. And that is literally impressive. We're going to put the links to that video in the show notes so that people can go to that. I think we almost have to, because we're so inundated with this, is we have to see proof, and we have to search out information to help us to really get it, that it's really damaging.
Yep. It's 2020. It's ABC Digital Addiction. It was from December 1st of 2017.
Okay.
No, that whole show was very good.
Yes.
This was just part of it, but
yeah, it was all on addiction.
Yep. Video game addiction.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay.
And so I would just, recommend people watching that.
Right.
Because it is on YouTube. And
Yes.
It's on our website. I'm sure you can find it elsewhere.
Okay, so what do you mean when you talk about thumb technology analogy? Thumb technology analogy. What is that?
Well, that is talks about. Here's our picture of that. Let's see. There it is.
Okay, so it's communication skills on the index finger, social bonding with self and others on the middle finger. Interesting. Empathy, recognize the emotions of self and others. And then the pinky is self-control, and the thumb is uses use if technology improved hand-eye coordination, quick analytical skills, uh, im- let's see, reflexes, improved reflexes. Okay, so
So
that's
what
the
this is
hand.
saying is when you're gaming, you can hold up your fingers
Okay.
and you become all thumbs because you're not doing any of those four
Uh-huh.
those four things. You don't do that when you're gaming.
Right.
And
Oh,
and so that's
oh,
what they're saying about the all thumb technology. As you're gaming, you keep losing those skills, and pretty soon you're all thumbs.
it's all thumbs and all technology. So
Yep.
that's
And
saying
the
you're
only thing
losing.
that you have is you have good hand-eye coordination. You have quick analytical skills.
Mhm.
Yep. And you can have improved reflexes. But in the meantime, you've lost self-control, you've lost empathy and recognizing the emotions of yourself and others. You are no longer socially bonding with yourself
Mhm.
and others. And your communication skills are rapidly going down.
And that's huge.
It
And
is.
all those things, though, and we wonder why a lot of younger people in their teens and 20s and even 30s have trouble getting jobs and being, independent. And that's exactly why, because they've lost all of those skills. They don't have them.
And that's being human, to have self-control, to have empathy, to have social bonding, to be able to talk to each other. That is being human. And as you lose those skills, you just become, like somebody said, all I could see was the back of his head as he was pounding on the keyboard.
Oh,
They're not even, real people. They're just like, just a part of a human, and they're missing the important part that really makes life enjoyable.
yeah. So, what is the toxic? Expand a little bit on the toxic communities in video games.
Well, that's kind of where the violence starts, because a lot of the games, they're so toxic, and they have like rude behavior, cyberbullying, which happens a lot in video games.
Mhm.
I've even talked to people who said they were hired by the game companies to go and bully other people to get their stuff so that they would have to buy more stuff.
Oh my.
Yeah. And, the person who's getting paid to do it, he thinks it's great, but the family members are like, this is like ridiculous.
So do people actually kind of like almost like gambling, lose like
Mhm.
a ton of money, not have money to pay their bills, their rent,
Yes.
their food, and then family members are stuck with how do we do this? Like what do
Yes.
we do
How do
about
we stop it?
yeah,
And
how do
then,
we stop it?
I mean, this is one of the things that happens with gamers is the family members are affected by it first. They see what's happening. They try to talk to the gamer. The gamer's like, there's nothing wrong with me. All I'm doing is playing video games.
Mhm.
It's better than, going out and getting drunk and doing drugs, And so then what is the mother or the spouse supposed to say to that?
Yeah,
But in
but
the long run, it's affecting them just as bad, if not worse.
yeah.
And now, because this is a socially accepted addiction, everybody's doing it. And they're like, well, everybody's doing it. There can't be much wrong with it because, nobody's going to jail for it. And, you know, but it affects the relationship so much.
Yeah.
And the person who's the addict, he's like getting all the benefits because everybody around him has to pick up his slack,
Mhm.
take care of the stuff, take care of the house, take care of the bills. And at the same time, the gamer is putting himself in a prison because he is losing those human traits. And he soon will not even want to leave the house. And we have many, many parents calling with their adult son who's like in the 40s, who will forever be in their basement because they can't even leave the house because they don't even want to talk to real people. They don't want to go outside. The games become their prison, and that's all they know.
Yeah.
And it's happening a lot more than people want to know about.
I think so. Yeah.
Mhm.
And I really think the family members are really lost, not feeling like there's, like you said, there's not, where do you get help? Where do you get understanding? Where do you get somebody to give you tools? Like the classes that I teach for people in all difficult relationships, and I give them tools, and the tools work for everything. They work even with, gamers, addicted gamers. But I don't think that people recognize that they have those choices when it's something that's socially acceptable. And it is very hard. It's as hard to get, or maybe you could tell me it's sometimes even harder to get a gamer to stop gaming than it is to get somebody to stop drinking and stop using drugs. I mean, we're talking about their psychological and physiological addictions. Psychological is every bit as powerful and strong as physiological. But when you're talking about losing your connections with the real world and only having connections and skills that work in a virtual world, how do you stop that virtual world and step back into the real world without
It's
the
very
skills?
difficult. And then, as we always say, it's up to the addict to decide if they want to leave the games or not.
Yeah.
But we really see that in actual reality, you cannot be an addicted gamer unless you've got somebody enabling you.
Oh,
You've got to have somebody paying the bills. You've got to have somebody paying for the internet. You've got to have a place to stay. You got to have somebody feeding you. And if you really think about it, if they didn't have any of that, they couldn't be a gamer.
can't be
So
a gamer on the street because you don't have a way to plug in your game,
you
and
don't have
you
the
don't have
money.
internet, and you don't have the money.
But what happens, which I've never really seen this with any other addiction, is the violence and the anger that comes when the parents try to take away the games. I
Yes.
have never seen anything like this. Children have killed their parents because they've taken away the games. It is just, I have so many parents who are afraid to take it away because they've tried. And the child will stay in their room and scream and bang, for 3 days straight. And they're like, they just give up. They say, I just can't do this anymore. So they let him do the games. It's just absolutely astounding what this does to the brain and how the brain reacts when it cannot play the video games.
Yeah, and that's fascinating to think about how it could produce that much anger. But I think that is I've seen it even with cell phone use and kids
Yes,
watching YouTube and stuff, maybe not
technology.
to that
Mhm.
degree, but there is a lot of anger and that happens when you try to do that. I think in that 2020 movie, they took a girl out to a camp who was addicted to her cell phone, and she had the same type of, I mean, she got depressed. It was, highly affected them. So yes, so we're kind of jumping around a little here, but I think it's really important. Let's kind of follow up with that. So families and you have founded the organization for the families of gamers, and then
Yeah.
also for gamers. So Olga and
Olga for the
John.
gamers and Olg-Anon for the family
Yeah,
members.
so there is help, and you have a website that I'll put in the show notes that's filled with information and references and links. And then you have,
Techniques to do things you can do to help your, gamer get off the games. And I think one of the things that we see happen quite often is they'll get them off the games. They'll finally get the gamer to agree to get off the games. So they're off the games for like 60 days and they're doing really well. They're coming back into real life. Their brain's starting to work right again. And then the gamer will say, well, I've been doing pretty good. You think I could just play one game? And the parent will like, oh, yeah, I think you're doing pretty good. So you can play one game. They give them that one game. Within a week, they've lost them.
oh, wow.
And then they can't get them back because now the gamer knows, well, if I'm just good for a while, they'll let me game again. And that one little, um, decision for the parents to let them game again. And it's just like with an addiction, that's why we say, you decide that you're going to quit for life.
Mhm.
Like you're not just going to quit today and you're starting tomorrow.
So the gamers actually have to say, I'm not ever going to go back to video gaming. Any video gaming or just the virtual?
Any
Any
video games.
any
Yeah,
video
because
game.
it's still the same pathway in your brain. It's still that neural pathway. And what I'm going to just say this, when you go into recovery to get help, you start another neural pathway in your brain, and it's called the recovery pathway. And the more you work on your recovery, I mean, we have the 12 steps, we have all sorts of different tools they can use to go into recovery and stay in recovery. And the more you work on your recovery pathway, the bigger that pathway gets. Now, the gaming pathway is always there.
Mhm.
So it's not going to go away. So if you do go back in, you're just going to get sucked right in again. So that's why, we say, one day at a time. You don't have to say that you're not going to do it forever, but just say that you're not going to game today. And then you're going to work on, getting good tools in your life and things you can do to make your real life better.
Mhm.
And that's why we have meetings and encourage, each other to stay on their recovery path, because that's what it is. And the more you're on that, and then you'll automatically, when things happen, you'll have these tools to pick up and use, so you don't have to go back and use your drug of choice. Because that's what you really got to remember. When it becomes a drug for you, that's when your life starts falling apart.
Yeah.
You don't want to go back there because it'll suck you right back in. And you
Yeah.
don't know if you're going to get out.
And you don't know if you're going to get out. And that's the way it is with any drug or alcohol. I remember my father was in AA and he's passed away now, but he used to say, one drink and I may die drinking. I can never, ever pick it up. Not even, I don't want to be near it. I don't want it. And he wouldn't let anybody ever, even if you came over for dinner, he wouldn't let you put it in the fridge. He said, I don't want to accidentally drink it because I don't want to accidentally put that alcohol back in because I may never be able to stop. And that's really important that you make that point, that it's the same thing for gaming, which is powerful. So a gamer has to hit the bottom and say, I can't do this anymore. It's ruining my life, or I don't have any other options because I can't survive. They have to hit their bottom to get help. And what's the family? Like you said, there's an enabler behind every gamer. So what's the family have to do?
Well, the family will have to, well, the one thing we want to happen is the parents to both be on the same page.
Okay.
Because a lot of times the father thinks, oh, it's not that bad, everybody's doing it. And the mother's like wringing her hands, So we want the parents to be on the same page to support that decision. And then they need to talk to the gamer and say, this is what we see, and there needs to be some changing. And the parents need to have a plan
Mm-hmm.
and go over it with the gamer, saying, this is what we're going to do. And some of the things that we suggest that they do is, the first thing is they have to fill up the empty space from gaming with something else, so that they don't replace it with something else. And if it's just a blank spot in the gamer's life, it's not going to work, because he's just going to be all the time thinking about it, being angry and not wanting to move forward. So we just tell them to make, and we have these lists on our website of 101 plus things to do instead of gaming.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's
And
great.
so I tell them, go through those lists and list about 30 things that you would like to do instead of gaming. And we have to have the lists, because when you ask a gamer what they want to do, they're like, I've never done anything but game, so
Mhm.
I don't know. So we're trying to help them say, okay, look at this list, look at some things that you think you have a gift for, something that, appeals to you, write it down. And then we tell them to put it in order of the funnest things first. Because when you're first get off the games, your brain's like, yeah, I gotta have it, I gotta have it, I gotta have it. So if you're replacing it with something fun that you want to do, then your brain isn't going to really think about that you're not gaming, because it's going to be enjoying what you're doing. So we want them to make that plan with their gamer of things they're going to do instead of the games, start doing them. One of the things we highly encourage is to have family time, do family things together, have meals together, go to movies together, to work on getting that relationship bonding again. So that's what I'm saying about a plan. You get those things in place, tell the gamer what you're going to be doing with them, so the gamer knows that, okay, I'm not going to just be, out on the sidewalk trying to figure out how to live, that they're going to get that support. And so it'll, bring some peace to them that, okay, another thing is to point out, because we have a test, if you think you need to stop, and they need to go through that list, the gamer does, the parents have to go through it with the gamer or the family member, so that they can actually look into their life and say, I think I really do need to change. I can't, because like I said, the family member feels it way more than the addict, because the addict is just sitting in front of the game with his keyboard and fingers. Okay.
And they're happy.
Yep.
And what I know from other addictions is that when the family sees that there's a problem and the addict does not see that there's a problem, that the family gets anxious and they get angry and they get obsessed with trying to make the person stop. So there's nagging, there's threatening, there's yelling, there's bribing, there might even be pulling the game mouse away or unplugging the keyboard, threatening. And all of that doesn't work, because it's an attempt to try to force somebody to change. But while you're doing that, you're just creating more turmoil, and the addict is just continuing on doing whatever they want to do. And then you feel guilty, because you feel like, I was mean, I lost my temper, I got mad, I didn't treat them right. And so now then you back down and you give in for a little while and you think, oh, I just got to let them, I got to back off. I can't handle this. I don't know what I need to do. And you feel the kind of powerlessness of, okay, I can't change it. And you just give into it. But I teach detaching with love, which is not getting sucked into the moods and the behaviors and the choices of the other person, but making choices for yourself. So having detachment, recognizing, okay, I'm not going to go down that hole with them, but I'm also going to recognize that this person makes their own choices and that I'm going to hold them responsible for their choices. Then I'm going to make my own choices. I'm going to control myself. I'm going to make my own choices, but then I'm going to decide what's okay and not okay for me. And that gets into boundaries where you've got to make decisions. And this is where parents make some difficult decisions like you did, which is to tell a child, maybe you can't live here if you're doing that.
Yep.
Give some examples of those.
Right. Well, I just wanted to say another thing that we have them do is we have withdrawal symptoms. We've got a whole list of them. And we want the parent to go over the symptoms with the gamer, so that when it happens, and it may or may not happen, but if it happens, they're going to go, oh, okay, this is happening because I'm not gaming anymore. So that'll give them a sense of calm. And also, the parent won't be like out in left field. Like if there's violence, it's like, okay, this is because you took away the games. But just because there's violence doesn't mean, and if you tell the gamer beforehand and you show them this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, So, you're good. You might feel violent. Your brain might be just screaming, I gotta have the games or I'm gonna die. That's when the violent comes in.
Mm-hmm.
And, then the brain starts just exploding. And that's, and if the gamer knows that ahead of time, this might happen, then they can okay, they can take a deep breath, they can calm down.
Go take a walk, go run.
Yeah. And that's when, they can look at their list. Okay, what can I do now instead of sitting here, just freaking out because I can't game. Let's go to a movie,
Yeah.
let's go out to eat.
Mm-hmm.
The family member could,
Yeah.
help with that.
Yeah. Oh, I love all that. That's all fantastic. And all of that increases the possibility of success. But to get the gamer to the point where the gamer will agree to give up gaming, and there may be times you have to set some difficult boundaries.
Yes. Yep. Yeah, that's with any addiction. Yeah.
Yes. And that includes, you can't live here, I won't support you financially.
You can
All
make
of
your
those
own
things.
meals. I'm not washing your clothes anymore.
Mhm.
I'm not cleaning up after you, things like that.
So what do you say though to the family, and this is where it gets really complicated, got an autistic child and you can't kick them out, and so you can't really say, I'm going to throw you out on the street, a child that isn't going to survive on their own. What do you do?
You need to get professional help.
Yeah.
And you need to have it with an addiction therapist
Mhm.
who will recognize video games as an addiction. Because as with everything else, there's many therapists who say, oh, there's no such thing. And
Yeah.
they actually encourage them to use their drug of choice, and they will have a customer forever because the
Yes.
patient will never get well.
Yes. Yes.
And I don't know that they're doing it like that for that reason, but to me, it's like, okay, you're letting him continue to use their drug, that is creating all this havoc in their life, and one of the things going into treatment and therapy does, it helps you to understand why this is an addiction. Because when you say that to young children, they just got in their head what an addiction is. Like, somebody who's sleeping out on the streets under the bridge.
Yes.
And they think like, well, that's not me. I don't have an addiction. They don't even really know what an addiction is. So they
True.
need to understand that. And that's why, you get the professional help to show that. So that is, and I always like to encourage anybody who's leaving the games, especially children, that the parents have them in some type of therapy.
Yeah.
To
So a good
help
question to ask a therapist is, what are your thoughts on video gaming addictions?
addiction.
Yeah, you just have to, what are your thoughts on that?
And if they say, well, there's no such thing, you do not go to them.
Or you can ask them, what is your experience with treating video game addiction? That's
Right.
another question to ask. And people don't realize that you can call a therapist before you go in and agree to go to an appointment and have a conversation with them and have your list of questions to kind of vet that therapist. Yep. To make sure that that's the right therapist for you. And if you go to a therapist and it's not the right therapist, you can quit.
Yes.
You are the one who makes that decision. So please, people need to be proactive with that, and they need to make sure that they're finding the right therapist, because it's a very huge.
It's very, very important that you get to a therapist that you like and the gamer likes, because if they don't, they won't.
Exactly.
They won't get better.
And we're talking about an investment of time, and we're talking about an investment of money. And we keep referring to the parents with the gamer, but this is also affecting marriages where it's spouses that have a gaming addict spouse.
Generally, the husband.
Generally the husband. And I was going to ask you that. What's the percentage of boys versus girls?
Very high. I'd say 95% are males.
95%.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
Interesting.
Once in a blue moon, we get the daughter who's having a problem, but mostly it's the males.
Yeah, with the video games.
Mm-hmm.
And so you've got things in the book that are talking about the violence, the death of the video games, where You have in some of your list here, as you said, video games and suicide, which is what happened with your son, where he got so depressed that he just gave up.
Right. And I just want to say, talk a little bit about the violence and deaths, because we've been tracking them ever
Okay.
since my son died. And there's been so many people who've died because of a direct result of video games. And people don't want to hear that. They just don't want to hear it. So I made on our website, there's a whole section of people who've died with their stories and what happened to them and
Oh,
how they died. So we've got, people dying because of suicide. We've got deaths from exhaustion and self-neglect, which means they weren't taking care of themselves. Parental neglect, when the parents weren't taking care of their babies, so the babies died.
because the parents were addicted?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yep. Killing of others. They murder somebody because they got all their loot, so they'll go to their house and kill them. That's actually happened. So there's school shootings, and that is so much on the rise since these video games came in, because they're violence in the video games.
Yeah.
But because, like we were talking in the thumb analogy, when they're losing that empathy and connection with real human beings, they can go in and do that because it's like they think they're in the game.
Mhm.
And they have no empathy for other human beings. That's why they can go kill them like that. I mean, you really got to get that in your head. That is how they can do it. And how we also have, a chart in there on the rise of school shootings since video games came about.
And it's just, they don't talk about it. They just talk about the guns. I mean, there's a political agenda that people have when they want to look at the shootings in that way, but that's all they want to talk about is the guns, and they never talk about the violence and the violence connection.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how they do that all day. They just sit and kill each other in the video games. It's like, how much can your soul take?
Mhm.
It's just like, having that kind of stuff fill up your brain and your life.
Especially if it's people that have an identity and you have a relationship with in the game, or you have a competition with, and it's not, other games, they're just strangers and you're just manipulating something, but you're not that character. So it takes on more of a personal level. What are some of the
They're first person shooter games, and that's where they just kill.
Yeah.
So there's all different types of games, but some of them are a lot more violent than others.
Yes.
Grand Theft Auto is also a really violent game.
What was the name of it?
Grand Theft Auto.
Oh, I know young kids that play that game.
I know
Parents
it.
allow
I
their
know it.
kids.
I was with my son in church school, and one of his friends played that game, and I talked to the mother, and I said, "Do you know what's in that game?" I mean, they don't even know what's in the games.
No.
They just, it's so violent. It's so, people kill and rape, and they kill cops. I mean, in that game. And this is like somebody who goes to catechism with my 12-year-old boy. And
What about Fortnite? That's real popular
Fortnite
too.
is very addicting. And they came up, I have a whole section on that in this book about Fortnite and what it's doing. And they claim that to be a very innocent game,
Mhm.
that it's free. But then in the games, I think they have like an hour battle, and everybody's got to kill everybody else to see who wins in the end. It's like two sides. And so again, it's all killing,
Mhm.
and it's only supposed to last for an hour. But man, there's so many kids into this, and so many parents are like, oh yeah, I don't see anything wrong with it. And I'm like, oh gee, they're just sat there an hour killing people.
They had pajamas and t-shirts with Fortnite and backpacks.
Yep.
I think I bought my grandson a backpack in probably second grade that was Fortnite, because he liked Fortnite, and not even realizing that was a problem. And t-shirts, and I mean, the gaming stuff is all over 4-year-old pajamas and 4-year-old clothing. And
thanks to the gaming companies there, I mean, one of
yeah.
the things I do want to touch on is how they're grooming children and young children to accept that hold on, I gotta stop this. To accept that gaming can rule their lives. So when they start them out young, the younger they start them out, the more that neural pathway is going to get set in their brain. So the gaming companies make it sound like, you know, these are all innocent games, but they're really just grooming the child to say that it's okay to let video games rule their lives and run their lives. It's what they know. You know, it's like, well, if you don't come back, you know, every day to feed your pet, it's going to die.
Oh
Stuff
yeah.
like that. You know,
Uh-huh.
that's what's in these games, of children games.
Of children games.
Yeah.
So you can
And
see that hook now. If I don't go back, I have to die. I've got a pet online, and
if
children
you
are
don't
bad
go
about
back
feeding.
every day,
Yeah, they're bad about feeding live pets. So I don't know how well good they would be, but maybe they're better about feeding virtual pets.
yeah, because, you know, then the more they feed them, the better it gets. The pet gets bigger and then they get, you know,
Well, and
fancier.
in real life, parents feed the pet if the kid doesn't feed the pet. So there is no consequence in real life if the pet isn't fed, because parents jump in usually, and parents aren't jumping in online. So maybe the kids are even have a stronger incentive to go take care of that because, yeah.
And
Wow.
then that's when they throw the fit, because if the parents is like, no, you know, we're eating now, and the kid's like freaking out, he knows he's got, you know, 15 minutes left to get in there and feed that pet, you know, and so then he'll be, it's like, you know, I got to get in there, I got to get in there. And the parents are like, what the heck?
Yeah.
You know, it's just amazing what goes on in the
Well,
games.
and then it sets up anger if the parent says, that's it, stop it. And then it's the parent's fault that the pet
Animal
dies.
died, and then they have to start all over again.
The anger
You
goes toward the parent,
know,
not toward the game, but then the
absolutely.
parent. And there's a lot of that anger that, and then the oppositional defiance starts
Yeah.
up. And I've seen it so many times where the oppositional defiance just grows and grows.
And I
So
just want to say this, another thing with the young ones, um, like I've seen them give tablets and phones to babies, 6 months old, to
yeah.
keep them quiet. So what is happening when they're doing that is the baby is now bonding with the phone or the tablet, not with the parents.
Mhm.
And so that's why they can be angry at the parents. I mean, we have videos where they have the baby's got the phone. This is 6 months old. They take the phone away and the kid just screams. I mean, it's 6 months old. The kid is just screaming, and the parents are laughing because they think it's funny. And they give the phone back, and the baby just, you know, oh, I got my phone back. You know, the bonding is with the technology, not with the parents. And then that's why the older the kid gets, the only way they can ease them is to give them the screen,
I
you
give
know, and they lose the control. The parents, there's no bonding. The kids like, you know, I don't get anything from
it.
you.
And
All
the
I want is the
schools,
damn phone, you know.
the schools are making it worse because the schools are putting the assignments on Chromebooks, and they are putting the textbooks on Chromebooks. And so their literal, all of their learning environment is there. So that's a frustrating thing for parents. And I even see it, in my own life with my grandkids. And it's like, how do you, what can, you've got a section here for parents and family, what you can do now to make a difference. The first thing you say is game-free homes. Is that
Right.
game-free homes, or is that video-free
I just need to
homes?
go back a little bit, because the who's responsible for giving the Chromebooks and the technology to the schools? It's the gaming companies. It's the computer companies.
Yeah.
It's a part of the grooming.
Yes.
It's like, okay, now you really can't live without this. And we're going to make more and more money, because now they got all the schools, you know, convinced that they have to have these. You know, and you think about that. And What I see, because I've been talking about this to as many people who listen, and I look within my own family, and I have nieces and nephews, my own children, and I watch how they're raising their children. Now, because I tell them about this and what I think of children and technologies, they will, like my son, when they come in from school, they've got to put their phones in the basket and they don't get their phones again until they go to school. So you can definitely make your home technology free. They don't have computers, they don't have Chromebooks. And I know some families are actually switching to homeschooling so that they don't have to deal with what the schools and the technology are doing to their children's brains.
Mhm.
So there's definitely things you can do, and you think it's extreme, but you know, when you think about what is your alternative, is getting your child addicted to technology. I mean, and that's the goal. And it's really, I don't think that it's from the schools intentionally, but it's from the companies who are giving them the Chromebooks
Yeah. Well,
and the iPads.
it's really difficult though, because they're putting you don't have a checkbook anymore. You've got Apple Pay. It's on your phone. Everything's on your phone. It's more and more on your phone. Your life is on your phone. It's everywhere. I mean, doctor's appointments, 3 day. I just got to have a doctor's appointment on Tuesday. It's Saturday. Yesterday on Friday, I got 3 messages from them. Check in now. I refuse. I'm not going to sit on my phone and check in when I'm in the office, and I can just check in the office while I'm sitting there waiting for my appointment. It's just, you just have to look at these little things and realize that we have to push back at some level, but it's hard to have your kid. It really is hard to have a complete, I'm going to say, I'm going to believe you that it's possible, but if parents can't be cell phone free, video free, internet free, they can at least put very strict limits on it.
Yes, they can.
And that's going to have to fight your kid, and it's going to be harder at first, but you can definitely put limits.
And I also want to have the parents realize that they need to start with themselves. How much technology are they using? Yes. How much are they ignoring their children while they're on the phone or their computer or their TV? You need to start with yourself. And I'm always aware of it because of what we've been through and what I know about technology, plus being in the IT field. I mean, I have, like, you know, a backside of it, and I know what they're doing because we did it. You know, it's like, okay, well, you got to give them a new version every year so they keep, you know, paying for it. And there's all sorts of little things that goes on behind the scenes that you don't know about. And the grooming that I'm talking about, that is so that, you know, the older your child get, the more they're going to accept it. But with me, okay, so now with the grocery store, they're saying you have to have their app if you want this coupon.
Oh yes, digital coupons.
I'm like, I don't want to use my phone for that. I want to use my phone for telephone calls. And then I'll ask them, I say, can you run this for me? Because I don't want that app on my phone. And generally they will. They go like, well, we'll do it this time. But, you know, just like that, we're getting pushed into it.
Yeah.
And we can fight back. We can say, no, I'm not gonna participate.
Yep. And what are some, you say set healthy age appropriate limits. Give me some examples of healthy age appropriate limits.
Well, what they're saying now, I think it's like 9 and under, that they shouldn't have access at all to the internet, because the internet is for adults. And when you give your child access, you're really not just giving your child access to the internet, you're giving the internet access to your child. Think about that.
It's heavy.
Because you can't be there all the time. You don't know what's going on. You don't know the messengers they're in. You think you do, but you really don't. And now it's another person that, you know, these pedophiles stuff can find, and commercials. I mean, there's so many commercials now on any social media this is stuff now that your child is seeing.
Yeah.
You don't know what they're seeing
No.
because you're
Well, we're
not
going
there
to
all
talk
the time.
about social. You're in the process of writing another book. You're almost
I am.
finished with it, about the videos, social media stuff. That's not all the other stuff that's not gaming. And we're going to do an interview on that too. So
Correct.
that'll be our next one. So anybody listening, watching, please look for that. And we're going to do that pretty soon. Might even put it up right after this one. So setting healthy age appropriate limits. Definitely don't hand that baby a phone. Give that
Right.
baby a toy.
They're saying 9 years old, really.
Yes.
And I know I have nieces and nephews who are allowing their children, and they're young, and it's like, God, just give them the phone to keep them from crying.
We used
And
to
I'm
take
just like,
toys.
you already know. Look
Yeah.
at it
What are
happened
you
to your
doing?
cousin,
It's just
and
so easy.
it's
Convenient.
frustrating. And
Remember how we used to take a bag of toys with us when we went somewhere? When we went to the doctor's office, we
Yep.
took toys with us. When we went to the store, we took something for our child to play with in the car seat. We put up
books and stuff like
things.
that.
Yeah,
You
we
can
had
do it. We did it. It's
Yes.
like, okay, you just have to have an imagination.
Mhm.
And it's going to take up a little more space than just one phone, but still, you can do it. It's
Yep.
called hands-on parenting. You're the one doing the parenting, not the phone.
Exactly. And then help for teenagers or for preteens, what do you recommend for preteens with gaming? Any games or
No,
no
I
video
would
games?
say offline games,
Okay.
because anything online is they're in with adults. And a lot of these games, including Fortnite, I think they're 11 or 12. That's the age, the lower age limit. But it's adults. So your child is playing this game against adults. And, being influenced by them. Other adults beside you, the
Yeah.
parent.
Other adults.
Yeah. The
And
stranger. You don't even know them.
You can't limit your group to like your cousins or something and your friends.
I don't know about that, but I don't think so.
Okay.
Because the people I know, it's like, yeah, I just think this is a one game where you got a 12-year-old playing against, adults. I don't really know how that
Very.
works, but I don't see how you can limit it.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to say it because I
And
don't
what we're
know.
talking about too is, I mean, you can't control your kids once they leave your house. And it's harder to even control a teenager because you don't have control of them wherever they are. But if you haven't set them up to be addicted to video games and you've allowed their brain to develop normally, they're going to be at a lower risk of getting addicted to video games on their own when they have the opportunity.
Right. They'll have and gain social skills, communication skills, human traits that make us human beings.
Mm-hmm.
And when they're on the games all the time, they don't have those. They're just antisocial. They don't want to talk to real people. And they can be bullied because they just kind of stay in the background. They don't know how to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Those are
Very.
things that they lose when they're on the games instead of,
Yeah.
participating at a football game with the rest of the school.
Yeah, and physical activity, play is really important for children's development, and that's play with their imagination and with taking a stick and a leaf and a stone and playing with those things. That's all part of the creativity that they need to experience and being able
Come
to
up with
manipulate things.
themselves.
Exactly. And then the role playing and the pretending they play when they're playing house with with another person, or all of those things. Social, getting outside, running and exercising helps their brain, it helps their motor development, it helps their fine motor. I mean, all of these things are ways that bodies develop into normal, healthy, functioning people.
Yes, absolutely. It's critical when you think about it. And then you look at how our world is today, and it's like, my Lord.
Well, we've
What
got, look at
happened?
what happened? Look at the increase in depression and anxiety and all types of of psychological disorders that we have in children and
Yes,
in our
in
teens.
children. That's it.
Exactly. And we have young people now that can't work, that can't function, that
Mhm.
can't have families, that can't take care of themselves. And this has been going on for 40 years. So, and it is going to get worse, because what is this virtual reality thing that they talk about where people can actually create, that's coming supposedly,
Right.
where people can have a 100% virtual reality? What's different than that?
I haven't actually heard about that. I've heard about virtual reality before when they put those big glasses things
Okay.
on. That was called virtual reality. Um, I know that Zuckerberg is trying to his meta
Meta universe.
meta
That's what it's talking
universe.
about.
That's what he
Meta
wants. He
universe.
wants all of us to be in the meta universe because then
Exactly.
he's going to be making a lot more money.
Yeah.
And in the meta universe, you can be walking down in the meta universe. When you're in the meta universe, you can be walking down your street in your hometown. And let's say there's a Planned Parenthood. And well, you don't like that. So you can actually cut that out. So from now on, when you walk down your home street, that is not there anymore.
Oh,
So you can make your town the way you want it to be.
which is a lot nicer than a town that has things in it that you don't really like, right? So it's a lot
Right.
more attractive.
Yep. And
Wow.
that, but it's not real.
No, it's not real.
It's not real. And you know, they want people to fall into this and follow them like sheep. You know, it's like, no, we don't have to.
No.
You know, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do your artificial intelligence. That's another thing. I mean, we'll probably talk about that, you know, in the next video, but still, it's
Right.
them deciding how they're going to answer our questions. It's like,
Yeah,
and the whole thing about what is truth today.
I know. Yes, it's getting very dangerous. So let's go ahead and wrap this up. And I think what I would like to strongly say is get educated. Your website, olganon.org, right?
Yep. OL.
OLGANON
Yeah.
dot org, right?
Yep.
Is where all this stuff that you've been talking about, that's on the website.
Yep.
And there's meetings for virtual, like Zoom meetings for family, and Zoom meetings for gamers
and parents.
and there's a wealth of resources on there.
Yes.
That
We have a whole section of therapists that actually treat video game addiction.
perfect.
Yeah, and it's from the country, all over the country. And so if you need to find somebody, you know,
Wow.
that would be one resource you can use.
Well, I'm going to put that in the show notes too. There's going to be a lot of stuff in the show notes. And then I would encourage you to go back if you didn't hear her personal story about her son's suicide because of his gaming addiction, you know, to please watch that. It's very, very compelling. And her books are all fantastic, and the website, so it direct you there. So thank you. So I guess you would say you would leave people with, though, there's hope.
Yes, there's hope. I just want to say our books are available on Amazon.
Okay, excellent.
Just search for my name, which is Liz Woolley, Woolley, and it'll bring up all our books that we have available.
Wonderful. Well, thank you very much for doing this today, and I look forward to our next interview. I think we've got a couple more scheduled. So
we do.
We're going to be really good friends by the end of this.
I know, that's great. I think it's great.
Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
so
Thank
much,
you.
Carla. I
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you doing this.
You're welcome. And thank you everyone for listening or watching if you're on YouTube. And I hope you come back and watch some more.